Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And we are back for another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. As always, I am your host, Brad Minus, and I am particularly honored and privileged today to have Dr. Jeff Anzalone here with us. And he has an amazing story that is going to resonate with a lot of you. So, hey, Doc, how are you today?
Doing great. My brother's also named Brad, so easy to remember your name.
So I asked the same question. First question out of the gate is, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Like, what was the complement of your family, brothers and sisters, where you grew up, and the kind of environment that you grew up in?
Yeah, my parents and my lone brother are still alive. We all live in the same town, Monroe, Louisiana, born and raised. My dad's dad and his brother, after World War II, started a hardware store here. And my dad had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. And his uncle had 9 kids. So that little bitty hardware store had to support 16 kids, and now just tons of grandkids and great-grandkids. My grandfather and his brother have passed away, but my dad is still running it. Hard worker, blue-collared. When you look up the word servant in the library, in the dictionary, you see his picture. I mean, that guy is just, he served. Yeah. It's just, he's been my, whenever I've raised kids or had issues, just kind of think back, how did he treat us when we were kids and growing up? He's been a really big role model for me. So I've been blessed to have him do that. But unfortunately, because he can fix everything, he's always fixed stuff for us, which I haven't had to learn that, and I didn't get that gene. So hopefully he will live forever, because anything that needs to be fixed, he comes over and he fixes it for us, whether it's at my practice or at my house. So I'm grateful for that too.
Because you fix people's teeth and their mouths.
Yeah.
So you must have got some part of it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But if I have a ceiling fan or something that's wobbly, or a door that's loose or whatever, that's when we call him to bring in the big skill. So, and we'll get in more to our story, I know, in this podcast. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. And growing up, you're just around my family and they just taught us the different things. But now that I have my own family and I've seen different things, I've realized that we had come from a household, hardworking, blue collar, never wanted for anything, had a great childhood, but more of I would say a scarcity type mindset, that limited, money is limited. We heard a lot, that costs too much, too expensive to go on that vacation. What do you think? Money grows on trees, so I was always in the back of my head going, okay, money must be very limited. And always very frugal. We had to save anything that we acquire. We get money, we're going to save that money, put that money in the checking account or savings account. So I grew up hearing that a lot, and that sort of carried over into my adulthood. So that's pretty much the gist of it, growing up in that sort of environment.
So you get along with your brother?
Yeah, he's an engineer. He's actually 2 blocks over. He's a civil engineer. We actually just started probably this last year working together, because the more real estate projects we're doing, we get his company to do a bunch of our surveying. And so that's been pretty cool to work with him and to talk about projects together.
Nice. So where did your interest in oral everything, I guess? Let's step back for a minute. Can you define the right way periodontist? We all think of dentists and everything, and I know it's got something to do with the mouth, but can you define it for us?
Yeah, well, perio means around, and dont is the teeth. So it's anything that has to do with the structure of the teeth, the bone, the tissue, gum, that sort of thing. So we do pretty much, our specialty in oral surgeons are sort of crossover, sort of like dermatologists and plastic surgeons. So we do a lot of extractions, bone grafting, dental implants, more of the surgery aspect of dentistry.
Okay. So kind of like ophthalmologist to optometrist?
Well, the ophthalmologist does the surgery, and then went to medical school, and optometrists they do. So no, they would be. They don't really have much crossover. But
Right,
you
well,
go to a dentist and they do the fillings and cleanings, and that would be like the general dentist, whereas they send us to treat gum disease, to replace missing teeth, with implants, that sort of thing.
okay, great. The surgery side of it. Excellent. That's great. So where did that interest come in?
It actually started back the day before I turned 8. And probably you heard the phrase, don't play with fire. And I was taught that. Well, my friend and I, the day before I turned 8 years old, we were in the backyard playing with fire. And he had some matches, and pine straw. This was in August, very dry in the South. And there was this red can sitting next to it. And he said, well, what would happen if you pour that on that fire? Well, you know what happens when you pour gas on the fire? It flamed up, causing 2nd and 3rd degree burns all on my legs, and sort of flamed up on my chest. So I can still to this day just see the blistering and the burns, and me riding home on my bike crying. And now that I've got kids, I just couldn't imagine my son coming home in that condition. And really up until that point, I've just gone to the doctor just for checkups, never had any issues or really sick or anything like that. And I had to go to the pediatrician for a couple of weeks, and then plastic surgeon. I had to learn how to walk again because I was in the hospital for so long with skin grafting. And it was a pretty big ordeal. But the plastic surgeon, Dr. Worthen, who's actually passed away, he really inspired me to really start taking a look at healthcare professional. And it was really great, really caring, just the nicest guy. So that, I guess maybe that just sort of embedded in my head at 7 and 8 years old. Maybe that's what I want to do. So in high school, in college, you probably, I don't know if you ever watched the show ER.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Favorites.
Yeah. So we would have a group, and back then you couldn't do DVR and record all that stuff. You had to be in front of the TV at 8 o'clock on Thursday night or whatever it was, on channel, whatever it was, NBC, that it came on, to watch it. And I just knew I was always interested in it. But also growing up, I had friends that their dads were physicians and friends that their dads were dentists. And I noticed a couple of things. Playing sports, my dad and a lot of the dads, they were always there coaching, and the dads that were dentists are always coaching. The kids, the dads that were physicians, they were always working. And then as I got older, and I kind of realized how much they were always just working and working, but that was in the back of my mind. So I'd actually decided to go to dental school. I had an uncle that was really instrumental, and a couple other friends, and, work 4 days a week. They're off on Fridays. They hunt, they fish, they do all these things. I'm like, that's a pretty cool lifestyle. And that was really kind of, starting from that accident to getting to the point where I went to LSU dental school. Then I went to the VA hospital in Biloxi, got interested in surgery, went back to LSU for another 3 years, did the residency, and then you may know my story after that, but I'll pause right there.
Oh, man, that is amazing. And I love the way that you detailed why you went towards dentist in
Periodontology.
Periodontology. Thank you very much, because that's going to be a brand new word for me and for probably a lot of other people. So periodontry, that's excellent. Yeah, you looking at lifestyle. So here you're able to earn a nice living and still get to see your kids and do what you want to do with your life. Quick question. You mentioned sports. What kind of sports were you involved in high school? And
mainly growing up, played a lot of basketball, baseball, and then football. And then when I got into high school, it was just football and then basketball. And then I graduated high school at 17. I was 6'1". Got into college. Now I'm 6'5". So maybe my parents should have held me back. But I played a lot of college, like intramural ball, and college and dental school, but never further, because I worked a lot. I mowed 30 to 35 yards a week in high school and college. And that was really what taught me that I love working for myself, and I could never see myself working for somebody else.
Well, that revelation came in a lot earlier than a lot of us.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us are like thinking about, oh, I want the big desk in the corner office, but you always end up working for somebody. So how long have you been practicing now?
Finished in 2005 in June, which was 2 months before Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, which our whole program, our apartment, everything was just pretty much. So we really lucked up for sure. So almost 20 years.
Wow, that's great. And so, all right, so let's get into the nitty gritty here. In his bio, we heard of a ski accident. So you want to tell us about the trip and what was going on and then how it happened?
Yeah, when I got out, I had $300,000 in debt, and I was supposed to come back here and join a group practice. Well, unfortunately, 2 weeks before that happened, they pulled the deal off the table. And if you know anything about professional schools, they don't teach you how to run a business or practice or anything about money, which is pretty important. So that really set me back into going back to how I was raised, that scarcity mindset. Now I was more in survival mode because we had a 2-month-old. We'd already bought a house. We're paying interest only and had all that debt. So I had to build, when you typically, if I would have gotten out, I'd have made a couple $100,000 and could start paying off. But now I've got out making zero, not knowing what to do. And it was tough, but I'm glad I had the Dave Ramsey background. I'd been listening to him just to kind of have structure back then because there wasn't really a whole lot of, quote, financial people. And I followed his baby steps. And it took us about 7.5 years to pay off everything, including that first house. And I found another dental specialist. He kind of took me under his wing, helped me network, he said, look, you don't have to take out any more loans. You can just rent from me. You can use my equipment. You can share my staff. So that was really nice. And then after 2 years, I purchased the building that I'm in now, started my own practice. And after 7.5 years, I was like, every day, I was writing on the whiteboard, marking off the debts as I was paying them off, thinking, that because, Dave teaches that. He's like, okay, after you are debt free and you have all this money in your 401k, then you just work until you're, 65 or 70 and life goes on. That's what I was thinking I was going to do. And about 2 years after that, with the paying off everything, we went snow skiing. My kids at that time were 8 and 6, and I got into an accident. Luckily, it wasn't major, but I fell and I hurt my hand. That, Brad, was my wake-up call to make me realize how risky I was operating financially. Because if you don't have your hand, especially your right hand, if you're right-handed, it's kind of hard to work as a periodontist. So for me, it was more of, I've got to do something to provide for my family, to mitigate the risk, more of like another type of insurance policy. Because I do have a disability insurance policy, but it's not going to cover the lifestyle. It's pretty much the bare minimum. And that really led me to start doing a deep dive on what the really wealthy people do. I'm not talking about the people on Instagram that drive around the Ferraris and I'm talking about like people with generational wealth. And I know several of them here in my town. Plus I was looking online and two main things stood out. Number one, the majority of them had real estate in their portfolio. And at that time I had zero. And number two, almost all of them had multiple streams of income, average 7 to 9. I had one. And here's another interesting fact. Once I started to go to meetings and masterminds around these people, when we start talking, if you're in first class with somebody and they're, a wealthy person and you ask them what they do for a living, they don't say, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, I am a dentist. They say, I own real estate, I own businesses. They're a business owner. And as I started going, and this was like months and years, I'm learning all this stuff. And I started a blog, debtfreedoctor.com, and I started to share what I was learning. So I knew there was other people out there that needed this information. It was literally like everything that I had learned up until that point, I was like 40 years old, was wrong. It was, I used to play golf. And it was like, you go and you play golf and you think, I got to, tense up and swing hard and hit that ball hard. And once you start learning about golf, it's like the complete opposite. You got to be completely relaxed. Like, how does that make sense? And like, it's a spaghetti noodle, so it's almost like that analogy. I mean, from going to school, from, getting that one career to locking in to getting that one income stream to paying all these taxes. It's just like, it's insane that there's not more people teaching out there. And that's what really encouraged me to start the blog. And at that point, the only thing I knew how to do was turn on a computer and type my notes. And everything that I had learned, I guess you could call it non-clinical work, it was all free online, YouTube and other articles, and just kind of networking with people. So it's really amazing. So, like I said, I finished in 2005. Well, guess what started in 2005? YouTube. So I didn't have any YouTube. I didn't have all that stuff that my kids now have and people have now to learn it. So you can learn it even quicker now. So there's no excuse for somebody that can't get to the point that work is optional with all of the free information and resources that are out there.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, challengers. I've got some exciting news to share. As we celebrate our 25th episode of Life Changing Challengers, we're making a big change. Starting August 13th, we'll be releasing new episodes twice a week instead of just once. You can now catch inspiring stories and transformative journeys every Tuesday and Friday. So mark your calendars and get ready for more amazing content coming your way. Thanks for all your support, and let's keep challenging life together. It's true. There's a lot of great information out there, and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So you got to kind of beware about it. But I love the fact that you were sharing right away. You weren't keeping it to yourself, trying to figure out if it worked. You're just like, hey, I went to the masterminds. This is what I learned. And you made a blog post about it. That's fantastic. Whereas a lot of people out there, to make sure it works, put it together. And now by the time they get the blog out there, the information is almost like outdated. So obviously you said the reason why you thought about real estate is that you researched the wealthiest people and they all had real estate in their portfolios. Was there another common denominator that these wealthy people have?
The multiple income streams.
The multiple income streams. But the multiple income streams, so real estate investing is an income stream. So as far as those income streams, so they owned other businesses that would pay them. So those are the two things that you found that were the most common. Owned other businesses and they did real estate. Why did you decide on real estate versus buying another business?
Well, the majority of it was about real estate. And I thought at that time, I had to go out and buy a home and rent it out because I've got friends around here. They manage a bunch of property for their family. That's what they do. So I started looking at houses. I was just going to rent them out here and they would go with me. And I almost pulled the trigger. But there was a dentist back then that was teaching other dentists how to invest in real estate. He was in Dallas. I'm 4 hours away. So I said, hey, I'm going to go drive over and just to hear what he had to say. And I'm really glad I went because what I thought I was going to learn, I didn't at all. Because I always thought I was just he was teaching dentists how to go buy houses and rent them out. But that wasn't the case. He was talking about different ways to invest in real estate as a busy professional that had a full-time W-2 job passively. So you could continue to work, your trick is, you spent all this money and energy and time getting your degree. Your biggest wealth building tool is your regular income, your W-2 income. But you could take that money instead of putting in the stock market and waiting till you're 60 or 65 to get to it. You can start investing in different ways in different properties that start to pay you now. I thought this was 2014, 2015, about 10 years ago. I was like, you know what? It would really be cool one day to have a group like this, to have this network. And then, here we are 10 years later, and I've started to do that, build that. But it really taught me a lot that there's multiple ways to get involved with real estate, and you don't have to deal with tenants or things like that. So I started writing more about it and started building this following online. It took me I started investing in what's called a real estate syndication, which is nothing more than a group investment. You put your money in, you pool it with other people. You're a passive investor. Let's say we do a lot of RV parks. So you put your money in, and in return, they give you a quarterly distribution, which is passive income. Well, slowly but surely, I started building up this passive income to replace my expenses. And one day I looked up and I was getting ready to invest with this group in Dallas. This was 2020 in an apartment. And they said, hey, Jip, you have like this little following. Do you want to maybe see if we do everything, we have an attorney, if we make you like a co-general partner sort of thing, if you want to see if any of those people want to invest in this deal alongside of you. I was like, okay, sure. So what they did is, they sent out their email kind of describing the property and all that. And I took it and I changed it up and reworded it to like it came from me. And I sent it out like 200 people back then, 220 people. And then 48 hours later, I sent out like a follow-up email. Well, the next day they reached out to me because they were sending out an email. They had like 700 investors. They said, okay, Jep, you don't have to send out any more emails. We've raised enough money between, our group and your group. And they were like, well, how long have you been raising capital? I was like, what is that? Well, you're helping us raise capital. So this is the first time. They're like, really? I was like, yeah, wow. They said, well, in 48 hours, you just raised $2.4 million.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, I was like, what did you say? Just for sending out 2 emails? And now has transformed into, raising, $20-25 million a year just online. But it's just crazy that everything goes back to learning that one skill, starting a blog. It was like $300. I took an online course.
Right.
And I'm making as much money from things that I learned online for free as it took me like 10, 12 years of education and debt and everything. So my point being is the world has definitely changed. You don't have to do the high school, college, professional degree and all that, get, quote, a guaranteed good job, because that's just, there's so many different avenues out there now. And if you're already in a good job, well, there's multiple ways to make income. So I'm just basically just telling people what I'm doing and what other people are doing. If you want to be a coach like you can do that on the side. If you're passionate about something, you can help people. So that really the sky's the limit. It's pretty incredible what you can do now with a Zoom call and the internet.
I'm personally, I have a good job and I also coach, but coaching is my passion.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely interested because I would, hopefully my boss isn't watching this, but I would like to get out of that 9-to-5 job because I like to coach more than I do right now. And if I had something like that, that would be great. But I think it's a great lesson for everybody that, hey, one, again, if you have a job, here's a way to supplement it. And if you lose your skill or you lose something that's part of your skill, like a hand to a periodontist, that there's a way to supplement and eventually come up with an income that, you know what, now you can be a doctor part-time and you're still getting the income and setting yourself up for the future. And generational wealth was what you said, basically what you were mentioning before. So we're gonna definitely, in the show notes, it's debtfreedoctor. And we're gonna put that in the show notes. And he has got a really, really cool free guide that you all need to check out. And you're gonna like that. But how about you give us one nugget, I should say, of information on something that maybe they can take action. Some people could take action on now.
When I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
And he talked about something called the cash flow quadrant in that book. Plus he has another book specifically on the cash flow quadrant. And that's basically nothing more than thinking about how you make money. And when I ask people, how do you make money? They just say, well, I go to a job. Again, you don't, we have this ability to think, and it's just like it's been taken away from us because we sit through school for so many years and we're just told what to do and told what to learn and take a test on it. And if you pass the test, you can move on to the next grade. So it's almost like we lose our ability to think and think about, and he makes you think about how do you make money, and he breaks it up into a quadrant. Well, the majority of the people are employees. Then, I start off as an employee working for that other dental specialist. Why do people want to be employees? Well, it's safe. It's limited risk. You may get some benefits, 401k, health, maybe some insurance, things like that. You know that you're going to clock in and clock out, and you pretty much know what you're going to make every month or year. People like safety. They don't like a lot of risk. But what you don't understand is you if you're not working, you're not making money. And what you also don't understand is your money is the highest taxed income there is, active income. Again, they don't teach you anything. This literally should be taught at high school, but it's not. And then I got to the point where I thought everything was going to be sunshine and rainbows when I went from an employee to a self-employed. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm my own boss. But yet it's like even worse now because you're still trading time for money. You're wearing so many different hats. You're the HR director. You're the payroll guy. You're dealing with patients or clients or customers. I mean, you're running everything, having to juggle everything, running a business. You're paying even more taxes because, well, as an employee, you can split your self-employment tax with your employer. Well, if you're the employer, you're paying all of it, 15 point, whatever, 3% or 6%. Again, you're trading time for money. So he says that left side of the quadrant, the E, employee, the self-employed, is the poor side. That's 98% of the country. That's how we make money. And we just take it for granted. But once you learn this and you start questioning it, to get over to the right side. And the right side is where the wealthy people are. They're the B quadrant, which is the business owner. I've got a friend here that owns a health club. He can take off for a month, 2 months, 3 months in the summer. Guess what? The health club still runs. I can't do that. Or if you own your own business or if you're an employee, you can't take off. Why? Because you don't get paid. And the ultimate quadrant is the I quadrant, which is the Warren Buffett and these really wealthy people. They're investors. Literally, their money works for them. Their money makes some money. They don't have to trade time for money. This is the rich side. And the money coming in, remember we talked about the multiple income streams and dividends and rental income, all that is taxed differently than active income. It's like the lowest tax income there is. So not only are you not trading time for money, not only do you have multiple income streams coming in, but it's not taxed that much. And once I read that, I was like, holy cow, this is insane. And that was the other thing that, how the wealthy people operate. They have the real estate, they have the multiple income streams, and they're on this right side of the quadrant. Right. So I guess once I heard those three things, I made it a point. I wanted to do everything I can to get over to the right side of the quadrant and start teaching people about it. So if my one nugget would be read that book or Google or look up. We have resources, articles, and YouTube videos. I have a lot of YouTube videos on Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the cash flow quadrant. Watch it multiple times and let it sink in and figure out where you are in the quadrant. If you want to get to the right side, come up with a plan and just do it. And that's what I've done. And that's what I'm teaching people to do. If you got kids, encourage them. There's Rich Dad, Poor Dad for teens. My kids have read it. They understand about entrepreneurship. And guess what? Because if you don't teach them, society will teach them and they'll just get a 9-to-5 and they'll be broke and miserable like everybody else. So it's up to you. Life's full of choices. Make good decisions.
You heard it here, guys. To, Dr. Jeff Anzalone and or alias, AKA Debt Free Doctor. So yeah, we need to check out his website, Debt Free Doctor, and that's the end is DR. So debtfreedr.com.
I have both. If you want, I have both Debt Free DR and Debt Free Doctor. And then my YouTube channel and Instagram is on there. I do a lot more on YouTube now because I think it's just easier to consume, and I watch a lot of YouTube. And if it's a long YouTube video, like 30 minutes or 60 minutes, you know how you can get the transcript right below it. I'll just copy and paste it into ChatGPT and just say, give me a 1-page summary. And that's how I get a lot of my stuff, just quick. And then if it's really interesting, I'll go back and watch it. So I use a lot of AI, I teach a lot of AI. It's just incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, no, AI is changing the world right now, and we just have to be careful. James Cameron said it. And it was an interview that I saw not too long ago. He's like, James Cameron, he says, I don't know what you guys are going on about this AI stuff. I told you back in the 80s, When I made the Terminator, I told you guys that we need to stay away from this stuff and we got to be careful.
That's true.
When I saw that I wasn't getting through to you all, I made 2. Then I made number 3. He says, so if you haven't figured it out by now, it's out of my hands.
Right.
But as far as summaries, social networking, or social awareness, ChatGPT is fantastic. And there's a bunch of other AI stuff out there. Definitely, again, deadfreedoctor.com. Check out Dr. Jeff's stuff, all of his blog posts. But this is huge, guys. So for all of you trying to find your next step, right? And that's what we always talk about. It's about that next step that you're going to take in your life. This could be a part of it, or maybe help you to fund that next step. You know what I mean? Because a lot of our passions out there, and I know mine, are expensive, but don't pay a lot. So this might just be the way to go. This is a tool that you can have in your toolbox over at debtfreedoctor.com. So, all right, listen, Dr. Jeff Anzalone, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on Life Changing Challengers. It definitely was a huge life change for you, and you told us your story, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I will see you in the next episode. Well, that wraps up another episode of Life Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.